All right, thank you so much. Nancy Vasquez has worked at the University Writing Center for more than 20 years, where her duties have including running workshops for students and faculty, teaching tutor training classes, and serving as a writing coach to graduate students. He was named the University Writing Center's executive director in June 2023. And before coming to the University Writing Center, she was an editor for both national and regional publications and taught college English courses in Missouri and Colorado. Thank you so much for presenting your availability to present for us, Nancy. The floor is yours.
All right, thank you so much for the introduction, and thank you to CTE for doing this for us, for making these opportunities available. I know we're all stressed right now by trying to figure out how to adapt to this new reality we live in. So I'm going to go ahead here and share my screen. Hang on just a second.
While we are waiting, so how many of you that are teaching classes with heavy writing assignment or assessment? No?
I am not yet, but I will be doing next semester because I teach the capstone planning. That's not required, but the capstone next semester will be.
All right. Yeah. Yeah, it's very challenging time now with courses with heavy writing or need the students to work with writing assessment or assignments. And besides of that, with all the technology evolvement right now, even with quizzes, low stakes quizzes using multiple choice, that's become very easily beat by AI, because now we can pull the overlay, we can use any kind of tools, they can just read our screen and provide answer easily.
I'm sorry for the delay. I'm not figuring out what's going on here, because what if I...
At one point, I could see the PowerPoint. And now I can see.
But it's not opening it in that.
Can you check mark use presenter view on the bottom?
Let me try that.
No, you can go back to the previous one.
Okay.
Or click the resume slideshow here. Will it go to your slideshow? There is a small icon.
Yep.
And then right at the bottom of it, there is resume slideshow. Can you click it?
Say that again.
Yeah, click that resume slideshow. Will it go to your slideshow?
Yeah.
Click from beginning.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, and it's not opening it in the right window.
Okay, go to the right side of your screen. There is automatic, and then use presenter view, not on the share part. Go
On
to a little bit to the middle. Go to the left.
Go to the left here.
Yeah, on the ribbon, there is use presenter view.
No, not that.
A little bit to the left.
Over here?
Yes. Yes, right to it. Can you check that mark and then...
Okay, then try that.
Yes. Is it opening on one of your window?
Yes, it's opening on the other window.
Okay, then you can share your screen to that window. There is screen one, screen two, usually when you do share screen through Zoom.
Okay. Let me do it again. Okay. So let's go to share, and then there. We get it now?
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
Okay, sorry for the delay. All right. So what I wanted to talk to you about today is just the idea that when we're talking about writing centers and writing and using AI, I think that it's important to go back to thinking about what we are doing with writing and why we think that students value writing and how that's being impacted by outsourcing that to AI. And I should clarify that when I'm talking about AI, I'm specifically talking about generative AI and things like large language models. I've learned that it's important to stress that because, of course, we have people on campus who have been working in various forms of AI for a long time. And so they, prefer that we're really specific when we're talking about it because, it encompasses everything from our GPS to the things we're thinking of like ChatGPT now. So when I think about how AI is affecting writers, I think about the fact that it's impacting what I expect students to get out of writing. And what I view as important about writing isn't necessarily what everybody sees, but as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, I think about it in terms of things like, shoot. Go back. So to me, writing is a way of constructing knowledge. So it's one of the reasons we're giving students writing assignments is because we want them to engage with material in a way that they wouldn't be able to just by taking a test or just by having a discussion about it. It's a more in-depth way of engaging with information so that they can move from some of those more basic levels of engagement to things like being able to apply it, to be able to synthesize it, even to be able to criticize it. And so I think that's one of the things I want students to get out of writing. I also think it helps students to find kind of an authentic voice, to understand things in a way that they might not otherwise, by being able to put things in their own words and really take ownership of ideas. And then also, again, I think of writing as being a social interaction. While sometimes we write for ourselves, mostly we're writing for other people. We're writing to communicate to people and to build community, to build connections. So I worry about what happens when students are outsourcing writing to AI tasks. So when they miss those opportunities, I think by using AI, particularly when they're using it in its entirety, I think they're not understanding things in that same kind of depth. They're not going to have that growth and that connection to other people. So I do really worry that there's something substantial that's lost, although I don't know that students feel that way. So that's one of my concerns. And I started thinking about why students would want to outsource writing. So why would they want to just say, okay, let me use AI as a tool for this rather than doing it myself? And I think there have been a lot of comparisons in saying the rise of AI similar to when we saw, for example, calculators being used in math classes. And I think there's some truth to that. Of course, calculators aren't anywhere near as ubiquitous as what we're seeing with AI right now. But I still think there was kind of this moment of people saying, well, if you don't know how to use this, what's going to happen? You're not going to have a calculator with you all the time. And of course, probably each one of us can put our hands on our phones right now. And so, yeah, we do have a calculator with us all the time. But I think some of those comparisons, though, lack some depth that I thought, well, there's more to it than that. And so two things that I thought of recently, maybe students are outsourcing writing. It's more like when I think about having to do my taxes, that to me is an onerous kind of task. Yes, it's important, but I have no interest in doing it myself. If I can find some other way, whether it's a program or sending it out to somebody else to do it for me, I'm very willing to outsource that because I don't see any value to myself doing it other than, yeah, I want to look over it maybe when they're done, but I'm fine with somebody else having to do that. I don't see it as really necessary to me. And then another comparison I made was I thought about the rise in using things like Ozempic and other GLP-1 medications. And in particular, I thought about how for so long we've been telling people, okay, if you want to lose weight, it's really simple. You just have to exercise. You have to be able to consume fewer calories. It's really pretty simple. If you do those two things, you're going to lose weight. And of course, there's a significant portion of the population finding that's just not true for them. It hasn't worked. And so while you had some people that it was really effective for, and they became sort of, vocal proponents of, hey, this is the way to do this, the rest of the world is kind of frustrated, thinking, no, it's not working for me. I don't want to do this, that I'm not buying into this. And I thought about the way that we teach writing, and it's been very effective for some students. Some students do well with it, but very many are still left struggling. They still find it very difficult to do. They don't find it particularly useful, and they are very willing to sort of give it up if they can. And then I also thought about, there's kind of been in the whole Ozempic GLP-1 conversation, there's been this sort of shaming of people for not doing it the traditional way. And so I thought about, well, maybe that's how we have to think about the way students are approaching the use of AI tools when they're doing writing, that maybe it's a way to think about it as, they've been not necessarily well served by the programs we've had teaching writing up until now. And maybe we need to recognize that they are ready to try something different. And maybe we have to be willing to embrace that. So I do think it means sort of a shift in the way you think about teaching writing. I think you need to recognize that it's going to be different than it was when we were all learning how to write in a class. But I also think it might be an opportunity to make writing more relevant for a wider swath of students. And also maybe to shift our focus from things that are more surface concerns to things that are more fundamental. One of the ways I think about that, for example, is the notion that when we're teaching writing, often when we're teaching the students to use sources, there's a lot of focus on getting the citation correct. Oh, what do you capitalize? Where do you put punctuation marks? Should this be italicized or should this be in quotation marks? And in that conversation, we're missing often the opportunities for larger conversations about, how do you know whether a source is worth citing? How do you know whether things are going to be relevant to your topic? How do you make those decisions? So maybe by saying, well, we can outsource some of the more basic tasks, maybe we can focus on things that are more fundamental. When we think about how students are using AI, they are bringing their AI generated work to the writing center. And so like everyone else on campus, we've kind of had to think of what our policy is going to be. So in particular, we have said that we're not going to be the ones to bring up AI in sessions, but if student consultant or student clients bring us AI generated work, then we're going to ask about the AI policy. So those peer consultants are going to say, oh, I see you're using AI for this. What's the policy in your class? What has your instructor said about it? And then the peer consultant is gonna, if they want to use it, if they said, hey, yeah, we're allowed, then they are allowed to certainly figure out, okay, well, let's pull this up on, Google Gemini and see what we can generate or something. We are not AI experts, and while we are training our consultants in how to use some AI tools, we're finding it's difficult because AI is moving so quickly that knowing what to suggest even becomes slightly problematic. So that's one of the challenges that we're facing right now. We also then, if we do bring up AI in the conversation, in the session, we're going to note that in the session notes. So our consultants write notes after every consultation. So we will make reference in those notes to the fact that this was either discussed or used in the session. And then we also have the ability in our scheduling system to tag whether or not AI was used, so we can do that and then go back and review that. I will say that we've probably done about 2,000 appointments so far this semester. I've got about 100 or so of them tagged with AI. That's not probably completely reflective. Certainly, the consultants sometimes forget to tag it. Sometimes they're not sure if they should or whatever. But I think it does give me kind of an insight into some of what's been going on. In talking with the consultants, and I should say we hire primarily undergrad consultants to work here. We do have about 10 or so grad students on staff, but the rest, the other 50 or so, are undergrads. Some of them are fairly willing to use AI for their own writing. Many of them, however, are really skeptical of AI use. I would say that some of them are maybe even slightly hostile to the idea of using AI. They find the fact that they are having to help their peers use it sometimes to be frustrating or demoralizing, particularly when they see that students are using it in ways that they think maybe are unethical. So that's certainly a concern for them. And then I've also heard some conversations from them where they are frustrated by instructors who are using AI to respond to writing, particularly as people who are themselves doing a great deal of responding to writing, probably as much as a lot of writing instructors are. They find it frustrating to see instructors outsourcing that kind of work. I was in a conversation the other day with somebody who was complaining because she had been forced to buy a pack-back package for a course that she was taking. And another student, another consultant said, oh, let me share with you what a friend of mine just wrote. He knew that they were using pack-back to review their discussion posts. And so he decided to write as vapid a discussion post as he possibly could to see what pack-back would do with it. And the guy read it off to me and it was horrible. It was just sort of basically using some buzzwords from the course, and it got rated 100 by pack-back. So they're definitely having these conversations among themselves and frustrated at times by this. So I'm kind of curious sometimes in thinking, well, why would students bring AI generated work to the UWC? And I'm finding that I think there's some value to these conversations, because I do think that the student clients are often more open with the peer consultants about their AI use than they might be if they were talking to me or to an instructor. So this kind of gives us an opportunity to kind of hear what's going on, but in a slightly different format. They also sometimes use the Writing Center as a way to test the waters on whether something's going to get, by us, whether we're going to see, oh yeah, that's acceptable or not. So it's a way of kind of testing that out. But they're also talking to peers who have a really nuanced view of writing. For unlike a lot of undergraduates, they spend a lot of time thinking and worrying about writing. And so they're bringing their writing into sort of an unusual audience, which I think has some benefit as well. I recently found a study from Computers and Composition. This was a study done at out in California. I believe it might have been UC Davis. And they took students who were in first-year writing courses and they gave them AI feedback, but they also got peer feedback. Now, this wasn't feedback from writing consultants, it was peer feedback from other students in the same class. But there was generally a consensus that students appreciated having both. They sometimes kind of played them one off against each other. They would look at the AI feedback and the student feedback and sort of see how they paired up. But I was encouraged to see that they were not completely jettisoning the human feedback. They still wanted that in addition to getting it from AI. In terms of what we've seen, like I said, we're tagging appointments, so I've kind of read through some of that, and I've seen a pretty ridiculously large range of responses. Everything from, I'm required to use it, but I don't know how. Can you, my peer consultant, help me do that? I saw one where somebody said, no, I'm not going to use semicolons no matter what you say, because my prof says they're evidence of AI use, so I'm avoiding them completely. Students who said, I'm not supposed to use AI at all, but then clearly are using AI, which obviously creates sort of a moral dilemma for our student consultants who then have to figure out how to navigate that. Students who say, I don't understand that concept really, that particular sentence. Let me put that in ChatGPT and see if I can get a better definition of that. Which to me is a really useful way of using AI. And I think that that's the kind of thing we probably want to encourage to sort of step in as kind of a in the moment tutor when something's confusing and you don't have access to your instructor or your TA. And then finally, I'm not supposed to use AI, but don't worry, it's fine. I'm using 2 different AI platforms, and then I'm running it through all 3 or 4 humanizers, so it'll be fine. To me, this is a little like saying they're putting their writing through a blender, and then whatever comes out, is different enough that it no longer counts as AI use because they've mixed it up so thoroughly. So again, huge range of student responses to it so far from what we're seeing. So a couple of major takeaways before I turn it over to y'all for any questions. But so yes, the UWC will work with students who are using AI. That's not a prohibition in any way from coming to us. I do think that getting peer feedback on their AI use can be especially meaningful for students because again, they're going to be willing to disclose a little bit more with their peers, I think, and also they're talking to peers here who have sort of a unique perspective. However, we are not AI experts at the Writing Center, so we are kind of learning sometimes alongside our students, but that's kind of always how it is here because we are not subject matter experts, so we're often having to look things up with students, so we're pretty comfortable with that. But I also want to say that I would encourage faculty to reconsider assignments that are using AI, and in particular, maybe to ask students to reflect on their AI use. I think that's an important way. I do a lot of asking students to reflect on writing no matter what they're doing, but I think in particular with AI use to ask them to sort of have that conversation. And then I think it's important to think about explaining why a writing assignment is being given to them so that they know the purpose of it. Again, I think if they don't see value in it, they're less likely to want to invest the time and energy to do the work themselves. So I think that that's really important to start making that a routine part of any writing assignments that you're giving. And also, I know there's been a lot of emphasis on instructors saying, well, I'm just going to go back to doing timed in-class writing tasks. And while I understand the impulse to do that, it is a really fundamentally different task than asking students to do the traditional out of paper class assignment. So just recognize that you're, in essence, you're kind of testing a different skill there. So I'll leave it there. Let me stop sharing and I'm happy to discuss with you any of what I presented or answer any questions.
Hi, Nate.